Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome to Science PC class. In previous week, we have started the chapter diffusion and osmosis. We will going to continue that chapter. So the objectives of today's lesson are define the term osmosis, describe the importance of osmosis, define the term active transport, describe the importance of active transport, differentiate between diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. In order to discuss the definition of osmosis, first we're going to revise diffusion. Diffusion was the movement of molecules from a high concentration region to a low concentration region. Now, if only water molecules are moving from high water concentration region to a low water concentration region, then diffusion is given another name, and that name is osmosis. So osmosis is a kind of diffusion in which water molecules they move from a high water concentration region to a low water concentration region. So we have discussed the first difference. According to the first difference in diffusion, any solute or gases they move from a high concentration region to a low concentration region, but in case of osmosis only water molecules are moving from high water concentration region to a low water concentration region. You can see over here high water concentration region is one in which there are more number of water molecules as compared to the number of water molecules in low water concentration region, and these water molecules they are shown by small blue circles. Transfer of water molecules take place from high region concentration to low region concentration, and this process continues until the number of water molecules on both the sides become equal. In order to discuss the second difference, first we need to see what is a partially permeable membrane. It is basically a barrier which is separating the two regions, and this barrier allow some atoms, some molecules to pass and some does not because it has tiny holes in it. So in case of osmosis, the barrier only allowed the molecules to pass through their holes, whereas the molecules having larger size they are unable to cross the barrier. Examples for partially permeable membrane are cell membrane, which is the outer layer of an animal cell, and the second example is whisking tubing. It is made up of cellulose and it looks like a bag of sellotape as shown in the diagram. So we have discussed the second difference. In case of diffusion, partially permeable membrane may or may not be present, but osmosis always take place through a partially permeable membrane. For example, spreading of a drop of ink in water take place in the absence of a membrane. Similarly, when we spray a perfume, the smell of the perfume reaches us in the absence of membrane. But when the gases, for example, when oxygen is diffused inside a cell and carbon dioxide is diffused outside the cell, this diffusion takes place through the cell membrane. So there the membrane is present. Okay, next we have to discuss what is the difference between dilute solution and concentrated solution. Dilute solution is one which contains more solvent molecules than the solute particles. Concentrated solution is one which contains more solute particle as compared to the solvent particles. Now this diagram shows that on the right side we have concentrated sugar solution. That is the one which have more sugar particle as compared to water particles. These bigger purple circle they represent sugar molecules. Smaller pink circle they represent water molecules. And on the left side we have pure water. Pure water, it only have water molecule represented by small pink circle. So due to osmosis, the water molecule, they start to move from a high concentration region to a low concentration region of water. And this process continues until the number of molecules in both the region become equal. Next, we have to discuss the importance of osmosis. It is important to living things because water enters and leaves living things through their cell membrane by osmosis. The second use of osmosis is that plants they absorb water by the process of osmosis. Water from the soil moves into the root hairs by osmosis. Next, we have to discuss the difference between a turgid cell and a flaccid cell. When water enter a plant cell by the process of osmosis, the vacuole swells and the cell is said to be a turgid cell. And when the water moves out of the plant cell by the process of osmosis, the vacuole shrinks and this cell is said to be the flaccid cell. Over here, it is an animal cell. So when water enters into a cell by the process of osmosis, it swells up. Next, we have to discuss active transport. It is the opposite of diffusion. In diffusion, solute particles, minerals, they were moving from high concentration region to a low concentration region. In case of active transport, the particles, the molecules, they move from a low concentration region to a high concentration region. So they are opposite of each other. When molecules are moving from high concentration region to a low concentration region, they are said to be moving down a concentration gradient. Concentration gradient is the difference of concentration in the two regions. Over here in active transport, since the molecules are moving from a low concentration region to a high concentration region, so they are said to be moving against a concentration gradient. No energy is required in case of diffusion and in case of osmosis for the particles to move from a high concentration region to a low concentration region. But over here, since the particles they have to move from low concentration region to high concentration region, so energy is required and that energy is supplied by the respiration of living cells. The use of active transport, plants they absorb minerals present in the soil by the process of active transport. Actually, plant will going to absorb those minerals whose quantity or whose concentration in the soil is less as compared to the concentration in the root by the process of active transport. In the last, we have to do the recap in the form of difference between diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. In case of diffusion, only the solute or gas particles they were moving from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. In osmosis, only water molecules are moving from high water concentration region to low water concentration region. In case of active transport, the solute particles are moving from lower concentration region to a high concentration region. In both diffusion and osmosis, since the particles are moving from a high concentration region to a low concentration region, so we're going to say that the molecules are moving down the concentration gradient. But in case of active transport, the solute particles, they are moving from low concentration region to high concentration region. So they are said to be moving against the concentration gradient. In diffusion, partially permeable membrane may or may not be present, but in osmosis and in active transport, it is present. Partially permeable membrane is a membrane which allow some particles to pass and some not because of the tiny holes present in it. An example of partially permeable membrane was cell membrane and whisking tubing. Both diffusion and osmosis, they are said to be passive transport. No energy is required for diffusion and osmosis to take place, but for active transport, energy is required to take place, and that energy is supplied by the process of respiration taking place in living cells. Diffusion is important because it is used to transport food, gases, waste materials in and out of the cell. Osmosis is important because it is used to transfer water in and out of the cell, and active transport is used to transfer minerals from the soil into the plant. Diffusion is taking place in case of respiration and in case of photosynthesis of plant cells. Plants absorb water by the process of osmosis. Plants they absorb minerals whose concentration is less in soil as compared to the roots of a plant by the process active transport. Hope you understand today's topic. Thank you very much.